Welcome to another AI pattern recognition deep dive.
Today we are wrestling with a proposal so ambitious it genuinely sounds like science fiction.
It really does.
It's this idea of a universal pattern recognition framework designed to decode, and this is the crucial part, help us navigate reality itself. We are diving deep into the source material, detailing the absolute basics AI, or TABE AI.
It is a massive undertaking, conceptually. I mean, just huge. But the core thesis is actually quite elegant when you break it down.
Okay.
The idea is if every system in existence, from the way a leaf is structured to how the S&P 500 fluctuates, if they all follow predictable, recurring patterns.
Which often share the same underlying mathematics, right?
Yeah, identical structure sometimes.
Yeah.
Then a massive sort of meta AI system should be able to spot those universal patterns.
And not just spot them, but use them.
Use them to guide us, to guide humans toward, genuinely optimal outcomes. It's pitched as a complete paradigm shift in how we understand things, with AI assisting our comprehension.
Okay, let's definitely unpack this because the scope is just staggering. Our mission today, for you listening, is to really get into how this system, TBAI, proposes to bridge domains we usually keep very separate.
Totally separate silos, normally.
Yeah, we're talking about linking human behavior, our biology, with global economics, societal structures, even natural systems. It's not just, an AI to manage your calendar or trade stocks.
No, not at all.
The source material frames it as an AI for existence itself.
Yeah, and that's where the meta part comes in. Meta pattern recognition. It's not just about processing tons of data, like big data approaches.
Right.
It's about finding the underlying structure of the patterns themselves. You mentioned the math headlines like power laws or fractal geometry.
You see those everywhere.
Everywhere.
Yeah.
They describe a tree's branching pattern, galaxy clusters, market behavior. TBAI assumes that the underlying math doesn't really care about the domain.
So it's domain agnostic.
Precisely. If you can map the mathematical structure of a biological system, you might be able to apply that same structure, that same thinking, to a sociological problem.
That conceptual basis is, it's critical to grasp. So, based on the document, this TABE AI framework goes way beyond what current LLMs or, simple predictive AIs do.
Oh, absolutely. Miles beyond.
What are the core functions? The document mentions 4, I think.
It does. 4 distinct functions define this metasystem. First, and most obviously, it identifies universal patterns.
Okay.
Like we said, recognizing those recurring structures, whether they pop up in health or economics or relationships or nature. It's looking for the coherence underneath it all.
Finding the common threads and all the complexity.
Yes. Second function, it provides real-time understanding. This is about the immediate application, giving you instant insight into what's happening right now.
How so? Like in a practical sense.
Okay, imagine you're in a meeting. Your wearable sensors show your stress levels are spiking. The AI doesn't just say you're stressed. It cross-references that feeling with your meeting notes, maybe your current financial worries, and tells you why that specific stress pattern is flaring up now and how it's probably affecting your ability to negotiate in that moment.
Wow. So it connects the feeling to the context using your whole history.
Your entire relevant history, yes. Third, it predicts future trajectories.
Yeah.
And this isn't just simple forecasting, like sales will go 5%.
Oh.
No, it's calculating these complex, cascading, probable outcomes. It looks at the history of similar patterns globally, mixes it with your current personal data, and says, okay, if you keep up this sleep pattern, what's the 12-month probability of hitting serious burnout? It's designed to give you that off-ramp before you actually crash.
Like an early warning system for your life.
Pretty much. And this is absolutely critical for trust. It has to present to self-correct. Continuous
learning as it goes.
Always learning, always adapting its models, updating its confidence levels based on new data and whether its own previous predictions actually panned out. It's never static, never finished.
What's really fascinating, though, digging into the source material, is the ultimate goal isn't just prediction or efficiency.
No. It's higher level than that.
It emphasizes that the primary human-centric purpose of TABE is to help us, humans, discover and then validate our purpose in life. That is a massive claim to hang on an algorithm.
It is a huge claim.
Yeah.
But the way they frame it, it ties back to data validation. The framework suggests the AI can serve purpose in 4 ways. First, discovery.
How does it discover purpose?
By looking at your actual behavior. Where do you spend your time? What activities absorb you? What values do you express, not just in words, but through where you allocate your resources, your time, your money, your energy?
So it measures what you do, not just what you say you value. Observational.
Exactly. Less about questionnaires, more about observed reality. Second, validation. Once it suggests a potential purpose or you identify one, the AI shows you how well that path aligns with actual beneficial long-term outcomes. Things like sustained high well-being scores, good relationship health, resilience to stress. It uses data to check if the path you think is purposeful actually leads to satisfaction.
Huh. So it prevents you from fooling yourself, like checking if the actions you take towards a goal actually generate well-being, or if it's just, busyness that feels purposeful but isn't really fulfilling.
Precisely.
Yeah.
It guards against that trap of mistaking activity for achievement or short-term excitement for long-term meaning. Third, it helps guide purpose-driven action with real-time feedback.
Nudges.
Sort of. If your validated purpose seems to be, say, creative mentorship, the AI would highlight opportunities that let you do more of that, suggesting ways to align your daily actions with that validated path.
Okay.
And fourth, it tries to connect individual purpose to community and global benefit. It shows you the potential systemic impact of your specific, maybe niche purpose. By quantifying the positive ripple effects, it elevates things beyond just personal optimization.
It tries to show how your personal flourishing fits into the bigger picture.
That's the idea. Optimizing human flourishing within the whole system.
That context really sets the stage. We need to shift now into the sheer breadth of data this thing is supposed to analyze. We're going from, your inner life mood, sleep, all the way out to global economic indicators. Let's start close to home. Human behavior and psychology patterns. #2i. Exploring the universal pattern categories. The scope.
Right. So when TABI looks at human behavior, it starts with the foundations, things like decision-making cycles. It recognizes that, even though we think we're rational,
Often not.
we're highly susceptible to really predictable things, environmental factors, physiological state.
And the core pattern identified here is almost embarrassingly basic. We make better decisions when we're physiologically stable.
Simple, but profound in its implication.
Meaning, well-rested, fed, emotionally calm.
And the AI detection is constantly watching that relationship. Decision quality versus physiological state. The source material gives a great, very concrete example related to fatigue.
Okay.
TBAI notices you, the listener, tend to make impulsive purchases, maybe expensive coffee gadgets or niche hobby stuff,
Guilty is charged sometimes.
consistently between 9 and 11 p.m. And crucially, your physiological data at those times shows deep fatigue, maybe low prefrontal cortex activity indicators.
It sees the pattern. Tired equals bad shopping choices for me.
Exactly. And the intervention. It's not judgmental, it's data-driven.
What does it do? Send a notification.
Yeah, a gentle reminder backed by your own history. Historical analysis shows you typically regret purchases over $50 made after 9 p.m. Your current fatigue pattern suggests impaired judgment. Maybe sleep on this decision?
Huh. It uses my past regrets against my present impulses.
Precisely. It's not morality. It's pattern-based optimization based on your observed outcomes.
That does raise questions, though, doesn't it? Is that helpful guidance, or is it kind of eliminating the messy, maybe sometimes fun spontaneity of life? Let's park that thought for a moment. What about habit formation and breaking? The source mentions that core pattern. New habits take, 66 days on average?
Around that, yeah, following that classic trigger routine reward loop.
So how does the AI help there?
Its power lies in optimizing that 66-day slog for the individual.
Yeah.
It aims to remove the friction, the trial and error that makes habits so hard to stick.
Okay, example.
Say you want to exercise regularly. TBAI monitors your attempts. It sees, morning workouts right after coffee, 95% success rate. The caffeine acts as a trigger, gives you energy. But evening sessions, you consistently skip them, maybe due to social fatigue accumulating through the day.
So it doesn't just give generic advice like work out in the morning.
No, it identifies your specific successful routine. It tracks the loops and whether they're sustainable for you. It might even track environmental stuff. Like noticing that when the light level in your workout room drops below 500 lux in the winter, your motivation dips 30%.
Wow.
So the recommendation might be move your workout gear closer to the window during winter months. It's about personalizing the environment to support your pattern.
Okay, moving deeper into the psyche. Emotional regulation and cognitive bias. Improving emotional intelligence with AI. That feels tricky. Subjective.
It tries to objectify it. It monitors emotional states using sophisticated voice analysis during calls, looking at your text patterns, correlating it all with physiological signals like heart rate variability.
So it builds a picture of your emotional baseline and deviations.
Right. The example given is for anticipatory anxiety, detecting those spikes every Sunday evening, maybe starting around 7 p.m. as you start thinking about the work week.
The Sunday scaries, a classic pattern.
Totally classic. And the system doesn't just say you have Sunday scaries. It flags the pattern and offers specific, customized stress management routines that have historically worked for you. Well, maybe it suggests an intense workout at 5 p.m., followed by meal prepping, which gives a sense of control, and then a structured 30-minute planning session to kind of close the mental loops before Monday.
And it would know those things tend to work for me specifically.
Yes, because it's tracked your stress response to those activities before. It might even say, this pattern is predictable and 73% reducible with the suggested regimen based on your past data.
That's moving beyond just monitoring into really predictive mental health management.
But it also tackles how we think, right? Cognitive biases. We all use mental shortcuts, heuristics.
And sometimes those shortcuts lead us astray. The AI is designed to spot when a heuristic becomes a liability. The source highlights the endowment effect.
Ah, yes, the tendency to overvalue stuff just because we own it.
Right. So the AI applies data science to that flawed reasoning. It detects you consistently overvaluing items you try to sell online. Maybe asking 40% more for used furniture than comparable items are actually selling for.
And it calls you out on it, gently, with data. An alert might say, you seem to be exhibiting the endowment effect. This pattern leads to 90-day selling cycles for you, compared to the 14-day average for similar items. Market analysis suggests $6 is fair value, not your asking price of dollars.
Ouch. But useful.
It identifies the bias pattern in your decisions and provides objective market data to nudge your judgment towards reality, hopefully making your transactions more efficient.
And circling back to that ultimate goal we discussed, purpose, the framework analyzes purpose and meaning patterns too, using all this data.
This is probably the most profound and maybe controversial application. It correlates your activities, your relationships, your achievements, professional, personal, with your continuously reported well-being scores, your experiences of flow, your long-term life satisfaction ratings.
It tries to quantify what makes you fulfilled.
Exactly. The example provided shows the AI identifying that your highest satisfaction spikes consistently occur during 3 specific activities. Say, volunteer tutoring, teaching others, woodworking, creating something tangible, and having deep, unstructured philosophical conversations.
Wait, so the AI essentially tells me what gives my life meaning based on data. If it says my highest fulfillment comes from creative mentorship, doesn't that sort of take the magic out of discovering it for myself, the journey?
That is the absolute core friction point of this whole concept. It potentially shifts purpose from this kind of mystical lifelong quest to a data optimization problem. The AI isn't meant to force a purpose on you, but it suggests the high probability path to fulfillment based on your own revealed preferences and outcomes.
So it might say,
the data is 92% confident that teaching generates your highest sustained well-being. Your purpose pattern points towards creative mentorship. Currently, you spend 10 hours a week on low-satisfaction admin tasks. Reallocating that time to teaching or creation could boost long-term satisfaction by an estimated 20%. It presents the case. ###############################################################################################################################################################################################################################################################################################################################################################################################
these deep, often unconscious biological patterns. The framework extends pattern recognition here too, starting with circadian rhythm optimization.
Right. The basic pattern is simple. Our body functions, energy, digestion, hormones, immunity follow pretty predictable 24-hour cycles.
Our internal clocks.
Exactly. The AI uses wearables to track this at a micro level. Body temperature fluctuations, maybe localized hormone indicators from a patch, precise sleep phase timing. This allows for truly personalized scheduling, way beyond generic advice.
Give us an example of that optimization in practice.
Okay, so the AI learns, through observation over weeks, that your body temperature consistently peaks at 4 p.m. That peak often correlates with the optimal window for explosive physical performance, like strength training. So it suggests you schedule your heavy workouts for around 4 p.m. Conversely, it might detect your natural dip in core temperature and rise in melatonin precursors, starting around 9:15 p.m.
Signaling sleep time is coming.
Right. So it suggests that specific window is your optimal time for pre-sleep wind-down routines to maximize deep sleep, rather than just telling you vaguely to get 8 hours.
Super personalized timing. And this level of customization also extends into diet, right? Nutritional response patterns.
Yeah, and this goes way beyond general dietary guidelines. The core pattern here is that individual metabolic responses can vary hugely. Genetics, gut microbiome, insulin sensitivity, it all plays a role.
So TABI AI tracks how my body reacts.
Continuously. Monitoring blood glucose via sensor, tracking energy spikes or crashes after meals, even correlating mood fluctuations with specific foods.
And the example in the source material actually contradicts common advice, doesn't it?
It does. It highlights a case where the AI discovers that your blood sugar spikes dramatically after eating rice, staying high for a long time. But interestingly, it remains stable when you eat the exact same caloric and carbohydrate load from potatoes.
Even though both are often lumped together as carbs to avoid.
Exactly. So the AI recommends you swap rice for potatoes. It's metabolic personalization. It understands your body treats white rice like rocket fuel and potatoes like slow-release energy, optimizing your diet based on your unique patterns, not population averages.
Okay, moving into education. Using AI to constantly adjust learning based on how someone's actually doing, that sounds powerful.
This is learning style optimization happening in real time. It allows for continuous adjustments based on comprehension rates, stress markers, engagement levels.
How'd that work? Say, for math.
Imagine a student learning complex statistics. The AI detects that when explanations are visual, using diagrams, their comprehension rate is 85%. But when faced with dense, text-heavy word problems, their comprehension plummets and their stress markers spike.
And the system adapts right away.
Instantly, it would restructure the lesson on the fly, maybe shifting to 70% visual and interactive content, only 30% text. It might provide tailored interactive hints or scaffolds for the word problems. The goal is to prevent the learning pattern from collapsing into frustration, keeping them in that sweet spot, the zone of proximal development.
And that links directly into maximizing knowledge retention curves, I imagine.
Absolutely. We know from cognitive science that spaced repetition reviewing information at specific increasing intervals is key for long-term memory.
The forgetting curve.
Right. But the AI doesn't use standard generic intervals. It actively tests your recall for specific pieces of information and tracks how quickly you forget that specific thing. It maps your individual forgetting curve.
So it generates personalized review schedules for everything you learn.
Potentially, yes. For example, if you're learning Spanish vocabulary, the system doesn't just say review every few days. It might recognize that based on your past performance, you retain masculine nouns pretty well, but feminine nouns and complex verbs, you forget those rapidly.
So it hammers those harder.
Precisely. It creates a personalized review schedule just for those tricky verbs, hitting you with them at highly calibrated intervals. Maybe day 1, day 3, day 7, day 16, day 35. It's essentially using your predictable points of failure to force mastery. #tag. See societal and political patterns, impartial reporting.
It's amazing how deeply this system is designed to map the individual, from your carb response to your forgetting curve. But the real test of its universal claim has to be scaling up, right?
Definitely.
How do you jump from spotting one person's sleep pattern to recognizing systemic risk in something as messy and, frankly, unpredictable as politics and society?
Well, the claim is you apply the same fundamental pattern-finding logic. You look for recurring structures, but this time in vast public data sets. And you focus heavily on historical cause and effect relationships.
Okay, like with policy impact prediction.
Exactly. The core pattern assumed here is that similar policy actions, things like rent control, tax changes, stimulus packages, tend to generate predictable recurring outcomes across different places and times, even decades apart.
And the AI's job is to forecast those consequences, but impartially.
Impartially, by presenting the data-backed trade-offs. That's key. Let's use the rent control example from the source. A city proposes it.
Yeah.
TABI AI instantly analyzes, say, 50 historical implementations worldwide, maybe New York in the 70s, Berlin recently, etc. It doesn't just say good or bad. It provides a balanced forecast based on those historical patterns.
What might that forecast look like?
It might predict. Within 5 years, historical data suggests an 80% probability of reduced new housing construction starts and a 65% probability of decreased housing quality due to less maintenance investment. But we would also predict there's a 70% probability it prevents displacement of low-income residents in the first 3 years.
So it lays out the specific, evidence-based pros and cons for policymakers to weigh, no single prediction.
Exactly. It quantifies the likely conflicting outcomes based purely on historical patterns. And this neutral pattern-based approach is also crucial for something like polarization warning systems.
How on earth does an AI detect something as nuanced as political polarization before it gets dangerous?
It looks for structural shifts in communication. It monitors things like the structure of dialogues between opposing groups, significant shifts in shared vocabulary, are they even using the same words anymore, and the overlap in their media consumption.
So if two groups stop reading any of the same news sources,
That's a major red flag. When a society is cohesive, there's usually some common ground in information and language. The source gives a sobering example. The AI detects that two opposing political groups have reduced their shared vocabulary terms, both sides use and understand, by 40% over 5 years. And their media consumption overlap has plummeted to just 15%.
patterns like that historically precede conflict or breakdown, right?
They absolutely do. The AI identifies these data points as patterns that have historically come before periods of serious social unrest or political paralysis. Its application isn't to take sides, but to alert that dangerous polarization levels are being reached based on these structural communication patterns.
And maybe recommend interventions.
Yes, suggesting specific evidence-based dialogue initiatives that have historically helped rebuild shared vocabulary or cross-partisan media trust. It spots the structural decay in how people talk to each other.
Okay, and finally, under this societal umbrella, the source talks about inequality pattern tracking, specifically economic inequality.
Yeah, which is often identified as a key driver of systemic risk in societies. The system is designed to track patterns of wealth accumulation and distribution that have historically reached levels associated with instability, social unrest, economic collapse.
Like specific thresholds.
Exactly. For instance, the AI might track when wealth concentration hits a known historical danger point, say the top 1% owning 40% of the wealth, and simultaneously metrics for social mobility hit a 30-year low.
So it's looking at the combination of factors, the compounding stressors.
Precisely. It alerts policymakers that the system, based on historical parallels, is entering a high-risk zone. And again, it would suggest evidence-based interventions known to stabilize wealth distribution without necessarily crashing markets. It's framed as an economic stability early warning system operating purely on historical structural patterns.
The source also mentioned tracking things like market cycle recognition on an economic front.
Right, similar logic. Monitoring hundreds of indicators, things like inverted yield curves, which often precede recessions, declining consumer confidence, manufacturing output, hiring intentions.
Standard leading indicators.
Standard, but synthesized. It looks for the confluence of late cycle indicators. It wouldn't claim to predict the exact day of a crash. Nobody can do that reliably. But it might confidently say, based on patterns X, Y, and Z reaching critical thresholds, there's a 70% probability of a recession within the next 18 months.
And the guidance for individuals.
It might prompt users. High recession probability detected. Recommend building a 12-month emergency fund. Or for businesses, consider deleveraging non-essential debt.
Yeah.
Translates the macro pattern into micro-level risk management.
And scaling even larger to the environment. Ecosystem health monitoring and resource depletion patterns.
Same pattern finding logic. The underlying pattern is often simple. Consuming resources faster than they naturally recharge leads to predictable collapse.
Example.
The AI analyzes a local watershed. It detects water extraction patterns running at 120% of the natural recharge rate based on sensor data and historical rainfall patterns.
Okay.
It then forecasts, based on similar historical depletion patterns elsewhere, aquifer depletion and significant soil salinization likely within 15 years, unless consumption is reduced by 25% and recycling infrastructure X is implemented within the next 2 years. It provides quantifiable, localized timelines for intervention, applying the same logic to biodiversity laws or climate feedback loops.
Okay, this incredible breadth. I mean, going from my coffee workout timing to predicting regional droughts. It really makes you question the underlying machinery. How does it actually work? We're talking about connecting my personal biodata with massive global databases. Let's start with the data itself, the collection. Data collection layer.
Right, the data collection layer. It has to be incredibly comprehensive and, let's be frank, potentially invasive by its very nature. For TABI AI to establish that individual baseline and spot those cross-domain patterns, it needs visibility. Full visibility.
So what kind of data sources are we talking about?
A whole array, integrated together, continuous streams from wearable sensors, your heart rate, temperature, sleep stages, stress hormones, smartphone data location patterns, communication frequency, app usage, environmental sensors in your home or office, air quality, noise levels, medical records obviously, financial transaction data, even social media engagement data, and importantly, continuous self-reports, quick mood logs, satisfaction ratings, tracking progress towards your stated goals.
Okay, stop right there. That list That comprehensive data collection immediately throws up huge flashing red lights. Privacy, security.
Absolutely. It's the elephant in the room.
How does the framework propose handling that without basically becoming the ultimate surveillance system, knowing absolutely everything about everyone all stored in one place?
That's the critical challenge. The source material addresses this directly, outlining 4 key privacy-preserving techniques. These rely on cutting-edge cryptography and distributed computing, not just putting all the data in one giant vulnerable database.
Okay, what's the first technique?
Federated learning. This is absolutely crucial. The AI model actually trains on your device using your raw local data.
So the sensitive stuff, my heart rate, my location, never leaves my phone or wearable.
Correct. Only anonymized statistical updates, basically the knowledge gained from your data, not the data itself, are shared back to the central model to improve it for everyone. This massively reduces the risk of a central data breach exposing personal details.
Because the really sensitive data isn't centralized. Okay, that helps. What's next?
Second is differential privacy. This involves mathematically adding a carefully calibrated amount of noise or randomness to the data sets before they're analyzed for patterns.
Adding noise, doesn't that mess up the analysis?
It's calculated very precisely. Enough noise to make it mathematically impossible, or at least extremely difficult, to identify any single individual within the data set.
Okay.
But not so much noise that it obscures the large-scale population patterns the AI is looking for. So the data becomes useful for general trends, but pretty much useless for targeting you specifically.
A necessary trade-off, it sounds like. What else?
The third technique is pretty revolutionary, though still developing: homomorphic encryption.
Right, I've heard of this. It lets you compute on encrypted data.
Exactly. The system can perform calculations, complex analyses, pattern matching directly on data that remains encrypted, scrambled. It never has to decrypt it to work on it.
So even the computer doing the processing can't see the raw, sensitive input data.
Correct. Imagine calculating your mortgage payments, but all your financial details remain completely locked and unreadable, even while the math is being done. This potentially eliminates the vulnerability during the processing stage itself. It's often called the Holy Grail for this reason.
Okay, federated learning, differential privacy, homomorphic encryption. That's 3. What's the 4th?
The 4th is the essential human element: granular user control. The framework insists that individuals must retain the right to set incredibly detailed permissions for every single data stream. You need to be able to revoke access easily, delete data streams, see exactly what's being collected and why.
So ultimate control rests with the user.
In theory, yes. Trust is built on the user feeling like they have agency, real control over the data fueling the system, not just passive acceptance of terms and conditions nobody reads.
But hang on a second. Who realistically has the time or even the digital literacy to actively manage permissions across like 100 different data streams? My heart rate, my spending, my sleep, my location. Isn't the sheer complexity going to force most people into just clicking accept all anyway? It feels like the technology might be there, but the human capacity to manage it is the weak link.
You've hit on a massive practical challenge, and that's precisely why the framework also mandates the creation of a new job role, the personal data manager, which we'll get to later.
Okay. A human helper for the complexity.
Exactly. They act as the interface, helping users navigate this.
Yeah.
But you are absolutely right. Without robust, genuinely user-friendly controls and that human oversight layer, the system could easily default to passive surveillance, regardless of the fancy tech. Hashtag B pattern recognition layer.
Okay, so assuming the data is collected securely with user control, how does the system actually find the patterns? What's the technical mechanism for recognition and prediction?
It relies heavily on advanced temporal analysis. That means analyzing the relationships between data points over time. How things change, how they cycle, how they trend.
Looking for rhythms and shifts.
Exactly. This involves 4 key aspects. First, identifying cyclical patterns, daily rhythms, weekly cycles, seasonal variations in mood or energy. Second, trend analysis, modeling those long-term directional changes, like gradual weight gain or slowly improving fitness. Third, anomaly detection,
Spotting the weird stuff.
spotting the statistically significant deviations from your established baseline, things that stick out as unusual for you.
Okay, cycles, trends, anomalies. What's the 4th? You said it was more complex.
Phase transitions. This is about detecting the critical change points, the tipping points.
Not just seeing a trend, but seeing where it fundamentally shifts.
Precisely. It's spotting the exact moment where one stable state flips into another. In personal health, it might be the point where cumulative stress definitively becomes diagnosable burnout. Or in a relationship, where a pattern of minor conflicts suddenly shifts into what looks like an irreparable breakdown pattern.
Or in markets, the moment sentiment flips from greed to fear.
Exactly those moments, detecting the transition itself.
That sounds like it requires a really detailed algorithm flow. Where does the AI even begin with all that data?
It has to start by establishing that comprehensive individual baseline. That takes time. The source suggests a minimum of 30 to 90 days of continuous data just to map out your unique normal rhythms.
Your personal steady state.
Right. Then it identifies all your cyclical components, your 24-hour energy cycles, your weekly mood patterns, whatever they are. It models the long-term trend components on top of that, and crucially, it calculates the statistical prediction intervals.
The boundaries of normal for you.
Exactly. The threshold for what counts as statistically normal variation versus a genuine anomaly. So if you usually sleep 7 hours plus or minus 30 minutes.
Then sleeping 6.5 hours is fine, within the normal range.
Right. But suddenly sleeping only 4 hours,
Oh.
that falls way outside your established prediction interval. That's an anomaly.
And when it detects an anomaly,
It immediately flags it and tries to investigate the causality using all that cross-domain data. Was the 4-hour sleep night caused by a financial worry that spiked stress hormones? Was it environmental noise detected by your home sensor? Was it staying up late making impulsive purchases?
it tries to connect the dots.
It tries to find the likely cause and effect relationship for that deviation. And then, critically, it continuously updates its model based on the outcome of that investigation and subsequent data. It learns what causes anomalies for you. ####C. Cross-domain pattern correlation. The vicious cycle.
Okay, so it finds patterns within health, within finance, etc. But you said the real power, the meta aspect of TABE AI, is connecting these across different domains.
Yes, that cross-domain correlation is where the really deep insights are supposed to come from. Recognizing how seemingly unrelated things influence each other, especially identifying these negative feedback loops, these cascade effects.
Vicious cycles.
Exactly. The source material uses a really clear vicious cycle example to illustrate this. It shows how physiological state, emotional stability, and relationship health can get locked into a destructive, self-reinforcing loop.
Walk us through that specific loop. How does it connect the dots?
Okay, it starts with a physiological pattern, poor sleep. Let's say, defined for this person as less than 6 hours a night, consistently for 3 days. The AI detects this via their biosensor patch.
Step 1, bad sleep.
Step 2. That sleep deprivation directly triggers a measurable cognitive pattern, say a 35% decrease in their tested emotional regulation capacity compared to their baseline. They become less resilient, more reactive.
Okay, tired leads to grumpy. Makes sense.
Step 3. That decreased emotional regulation immediately translates into a behavioral pattern, maybe a 50% increase in the frequency or severity of conflicts with their partner or family. Detected perhaps via voice tone analysis during conversations or just duration of arguments logged.
So tired and grumpy leads to more fighting. Still following.
Step 4. That increased conflict then registers as a negative relationship pattern, maybe a 40% decrease in their overall relationship satisfaction score, based on communication metrics tracked over time or even quick daily self-reports.
Fighting makes the relationship worse. Obvious, but okay.
Step 5. Here's where the loop closes. That severe relationship dissatisfaction, the stress and unhappiness from it, registers as a neurochemical pattern, maybe elevated cortisol detected, that worsens the initial problem. It results in, say, a measured 25% decrease in objective sleep quality, more tossing and turning, less deep sleep.
Oh, wow. So the poor relationship quality caused by the fighting, caused by the grumpiness, caused by the bad sleep, now makes the sleep even worse.
Exactly. The loop closes, and the original problem, poor sleep, is now being amplified by the conflict and relationship distress it initially triggered. The person isn't just tired anymore. They're tired and fighting with their partner because they're tired, which makes them even more tired.
It's a downward spiral.
A classic self-reinforcing negative feedback loop. The power of the AI, according to the source, isn't just spotting the individual problems, it's identifying this entire systemic failure and, more importantly, calculating the most effective intervention point.
Where to break the cycle.
Right. It's not just about treating 4 separate issues. The AI might calculate, okay, trying to fix the relationship satisfaction directly might only improve sleep by 25% based on historical data. But interventions focused directly on improving sleep hygiene first have an 85% probability of breaking the entire cascade, potentially preventing the conflict and boosting emotional regulation almost immediately.
So the top recommendation isn't couples therapy. It's a better sleep routine.
It might be, in this specific case, based on the data showing sleep as the primary driver of this particular cycle for this individual.
Yeah.
The AI could rank the interventions. #1. Implement a strict 9.3 Severo PM environmental shutdown protocol, lights dim, temp drops, etc. 85% expected loop breakage efficacy. #2. Schedule 20 minutes of daily high-intensity exercise. Proven stress reducer for this user. 60% accepted efficacy. #3. Implement a structured pause rule during arguments. 45% efficacy. It presents the options ranked by their predicted leverage on the whole system. #D intervention and guidance layer.
Okay, so the AI spots a high confidence pattern, maybe identifies a vicious cycle like that one. How does it actually deliver this potentially complex, maybe alarming information without freaking the user out or just overwhelming them?
There's a very clear structured decision framework that's supposed to govern how it communicates. The logic goes something like this. If a high confidence pattern is detected, say a health risk increasing rapidly,
Yeah.
and the AI's confidence level in that pattern is over, say, 75%, and the user has set their preference to receive proactive alerts, then the system executes the intervention communication.
And what does that communication actually look like? Is it just a notification saying problem detected?
Yeah, it's designed to be much more structured and evidence-based than that. First, a clear, concise alert explaining the specific pattern detected in plain language. Second, providing the evidence, we detected this based on X, Y, and Z data points deviating from your baseline. Third, offering specific evidence-based interventions ranked by likely efficacy for you based on your history and general population data.
So give you options.
Options, yes. It requires the user to engage with the proposed solution, not just passively receive a diagnosis. And fourth, depending on the severity, it might schedule an automatic follow-up assessment or directly offer to connect you with relevant professional resources, a doctor, a therapist, a financial advisor.
A key part of this must be adaptive learning, right? The system has to learn if its suggestions are actually helpful in the real world.
Absolutely critical. It's a constant self-audit loop. TBAI is designed to continuously track which recommendations did the user actually follow. What were the measurable outcomes? Did their stress markers actually decrease by the predicted 30% after trying the suggested meditation? And what was the user's reported satisfaction with the outcome?
So if it suggests morning exercise for stress, and I try it for 2 weeks, but my stress levels barely budge according to my data.
Then the AI updates its model for you. It learns. Go. Morning exercise seems to be a low efficacy stress intervention for this specific individual. The next time stress patterns emerge, it will downrank that suggestion and perhaps prioritize other interventions like meditation or social connection that have shown better results for you in the past.
It learns what works for me personally. And finally, there are built-in escalation protocols, different levels of alert based on how serious the pattern looks.
Yes, based on risk level. This ensures the advice matches the severity of the situation. The source describes 4 clear risk levels, signal to the user. Green. Everything looks normal within your established baseline patterns. No action needed. Yellow. A minor deviation detected. Maybe a gentle nudge or a suggestion for optimization. Slight dip in sleep quality noted. Orange. A more significant sustained pattern of concern is emerging. This triggers a clear, evidence-based recommendation and explanation. Consistent elevated heart rate observed for 7 days. And red. A serious acute risk pattern detected. This demands urgent, immediate intervention and connection to professional help. Significant cardiac anomaly detected.
Let's revisit that medical escalation example you mentioned earlier. Show us how it might move from yellow to red based on tracking someone's heart rate.
Okay, it's all about deviation from their individual baseline. Let's say the AI is tracking a user's resting heart rate, RHR, and sleep quality daily. Week 1, the system detects the user's RHR is up 3 beats per minute, BPM, compared to their 90-day average. That might trigger a yellow alert, something like, slightly elevated RHR noted, possibly due to recent travel or stress. Recommend monitoring pattern, just awareness. Week 2. Now the RHR is consistently 6 BPM above baseline, and their objective sleep quality score, measured by the wearable, is down 15%. This sustained combined negative pattern escalates it to orange. The alert becomes more direct. Concerning pattern detected, elevated RHR plus poor sleep. Recommend consulting your primary care physician this week to discuss. Week 3. The RHR is now consistently 10 BPM above baseline. The user logs a self-report of new chest discomfort, and the AI detects a sharp drop in heart rate variability, HRV, another key health marker. That combination immediately triggers a red alert, urgent.
And the red alert does what?
It sends an urgent notification to the user, possibly their designated emergency contact, and maybe even directly, with permission, to their primary care physician's dashboard. The message is unequivocal. Serious risk pattern detected, sustained high RHR, low HRV, reported chest discomfort. Recommend seeking immediate medical evaluation, for example, emergency department, for possible cardiac concern.
Wow. So it's using the pattern deviation as a form of proactive preventative care, potentially catching something serious weeks or months before a traditional checkup might.
That's the promise. Intervention based on deviation from your validated healthy baseline, potentially saving critical time. ###DriveV. Critical applications and use cases.
Okay, we've got the massive scope, the proposed mechanisms, the privacy safeguards, the intervention logic. Now let's really crystallize how this system, according to the source material, applies these patterns to solve specific, high-impact problems in different areas of life. Starting with health and wellness. #####, health and wellness applications.
Right. In health, the big push is towards truly preventive medicine. Using that continuous monitoring we talked about to detect the preclinical stages of disease before you even have obvious symptoms.
Catching things super early.
Exactly. The goal is intervention, when the disease pattern is just emerging and potentially still reversible.
The example given was detecting prediabetes development, right? Something that often creeps up silently.
Yes. Imagine a 45-year-old woman. Her annual checkups are fine, but Tabi AI, monitoring her daily, detects subtle, cascading changes over, say, 90 days.
What kind of changes?
Things like slightly elevated fasting glucose levels in the morning, a measurable decrease in insulin sensitivity markers over time, maybe derived from glucose response to standard meals, maybe even increased morning cortisol release patterns, and a sustained uptick in general inflammatory markers picked up by the biosensor. Individually, none of these might trigger an alarm.
But together.
Together, the AI recognizes the pattern. It flags it. Pattern consistent with prediabetes development detected, 78% certainty based on comparison to clinical databases. And the recommendation isn't generic advice like, eat healthier.
No, what is it?
It's highly personalized and specific. Recommend reducing refined carbohydrate intake by approximately 40% and increasing daily fiber intake by 25 g. Also recommend incorporating 30 minutes of resistance training 3 times per week, as this has shown high efficacy for improving insulin sensitivity in individuals with your metabolic profile. It's medicine tailored to the predictive pattern.
That precision carries over into mental health management too, doesn't it? Especially for conditions with clear episodic patterns like bipolar disorder, recognizing the lead-up phase.
The prodromal phase, yes. Recognizing that period before a full manic or depressive episode hits can be absolutely life-changing for patients and families.
How does the AI spot that? The source used a bipolar patient example.
It tracks multiple indicators simultaneously, looking for shifts from that person's specific stable baseline. For potential mania, it might detect. Sleep time drops sharply, maybe from their usual 7 hours down to 5 or less for consecutive nights. Social media activity suddenly increases by 300% compared to their norm. Heart rate variability patterns change in a characteristic way. Even speech pattern analysis from phone calls might detect acceleration, pressured speech, or an increased frequency of using high-risk vocabulary associated with past episodes.
So it's synthesizing all these different clues, sleep, behavior, physiology, language, into one risk assessment.
Yes, and the alert isn't vague. It's specific and potentially urgent. Warning: pattern strongly indicates high risk of manic episode onset. Recommend contacting care team immediately. Historical data for patterns similar to yours show an 85% likelihood of episode within 72 hours without proactive intervention.
Wow. It gives them a critical window, maybe 3 days, based on their personal deviation pattern, allowing them to potentially adjust medication or therapy before a full crisis hits.
That's the potential power. Personalized predictive intervention.
The source also touched on personalized treatment for chronic conditions beyond just prediction.
Right. Think about chronic depression. Instead of the often lengthy trial and error process for finding the right medication or therapy, Tabi AI could analyze a huge range of factors for that individual. Their genetic markers related to drug metabolism, detailed lifestyle data, diet, exercise, sleep, environmental factors, sunlight exposure, social interaction levels, and critically, their past responses to various treatments they've already tried.
And use that to suggest the next best step.
Exactly. It might generate a recommendation like, based on your specific metabolic profile and past treatment responses, there's a calculated 75% higher probability of positive response to combining intense cardiovascular exercise, meeting X criteria, with targeted morning bright light therapy, compared to trying another SSRI medication at this time. Furthermore, your detected circadian disruption pattern suggests initiating the 30-minute light therapy session specifically at 8 a.m. is likely to be most neurologically effective for you. Hashtag tag be economic and financial applications.
Okay, let's shift domains. From our internal biology and psychology to our wallets. How does this pattern recognition translate into personal financial health? Is it just a fancy budget tracker?
It aims to be more than that. The goal isn't just tracking where money went, but providing personalized guidance that leverages behavioral economics to optimize future financial behavior.
Okay, like the example given. An individual who earns decently but saves nothing.
It's exactly. Someone earning $5,000 a month, but somehow spending $4,800, leaving almost no buffer. The problem isn't necessarily low income, it's erratic or suboptimal spending patterns. TBAI analyzes their transaction history, maybe correlated with time of day or mood data.
It finds the leaks.
It pinpoints the specific high-leverage leakage points. In the example, it identifies two big ones. Maybe $600 a month is going to 5 subscription services that the usage data shows they barely ever use, providing low value or satisfaction. And another $400 a month is consistently spent on impulse purchases online, typically late at night when fatigue patterns are high.
Things they probably regret later.
Right. So the system doesn't just say spend less, it makes concrete suggestions. Consider canceling these 5 rarely used subscriptions, potential saving, $600 a most. Also, consider implementing a 24-hour cooling-off period rule for any online purchase over $50 made after 9 p.m., potential saving based on your history, $400 a most.
And the punchline is that this saves $1,000 a month without a major perceived lifestyle hit.
That's the idea. It targets the low-hanging fruit, the spending patterns that provide minimal actual value or satisfaction simply by eliminating the pattern-driven waste. It identifies the intervention points that require the least behavioral effort for the maximum financial gain.
That same kind of optimization intelligence is then applied to small business optimization, according to the source.
Yes, providing granular, real-time business intelligence based on operational patterns. Think of a small neighborhood restaurant.
Yeah.
TBAI analyzes customer flow data, maybe from reservations or POS systems, inventory turnover rates, staff scheduling versus actual demand. It integrates all that.
And finds inefficiencies.
It reveals a key insight. Thursdays consistently show 40% higher customer demand between 6 p.m. and 8 p.m. than the current staffing levels can actually handle. This results in long wait times, frustrated customers walking away, and an estimated $800 per week in lost revenue just from turning people away during that peak.
Ouch. And the recommendation: simple, quantifiable, and immediate. Analysis indicates adding 2 server shifts specifically on Thursday evenings would capture an estimated $800 week in lost revenue, significantly improving profitability.
Does it also spot growth opportunities?
It can. It might analyze weekend brunch patterns and note that demand consistently exceeds seating capacity by 25% on Saturdays between 10 a.m. and 1 p.m. It could then model 2 potential solutions. Option A: extend brunch hours until 2 p.m., predicting a 15% revenue increase. Option B: implement a tiered reservation system with premium slots, predicting a 10% revenue increase but potentially higher customer satisfaction. It lays out the data for the owner to decide.
Okay, and finally, on the really big scale, universal basic income optimization. That sounds incredibly ambitious. How would pattern recognition apply there?
The underlying pattern insight here is that economic insecurity isn't uniform. People's needs vary greatly. A simple one-size-fits-all UBI payment might be inefficient, giving money to people who don't critically need it right now, while not providing enough targeted support from others in deep crisis.
So the AI tries to tailor the support. It analyzes the community based on aggregated, anonymized, socioeconomic patterns, things like income stability, debt levels, employment status, housing security, access to healthcare, skills gaps. It identifies that different segments require different types of interventions, not just uniform cash payments.
How does it allocate dynamically based on those patterns?
The example breakdown shows the AI differentiating the population based on their need patterns. It identifies maybe 18% of the community are in acute crisis facing eviction, major health issues. They need immediate, intensive support, like housing assistance and healthcare access, not just cash. Another 45% have unstable incomes and would benefit most from the standard income support to stabilize their budgets and reduce financial stress. But crucially, maybe 30% have stable housing but lack skills for available jobs. For them, access to targeted skills training programs and educational pathways might be far more beneficial in the long run than just cash, helping them break cycles of low-wage dependency.
So it directs resources, whether cash, services, or training, to where the pattern suggests they'll have the most systemic benefit.
That's the goal. Dynamic resource allocation based on pattern-identified need, aiming to maximize the overall well-being and resilience of the community per dollar spent. #C. Relationships and community applications.
We started the behavior section talking about individual psychology, habits, decisions, but the applications also move into the interpersonal realm, proactive relationship maintenance. How does Taby AI supposedly provide relationship health monitoring?
It focuses on tracking the fundamental structural components of healthy relationships. Things like communication quality, reciprocity, shared time
How
pattern.
does it measure quality?
It might look at the balance of positive versus negative interactions based on language analysis,
Hmm.
the frequency and duration of deep, meaningful conversations versus purely logistical who's picking up the kids' talk, patterns of initiating contact, or even synchrony in sleep schedules or shared activities.
Okay. The example in the source looked at a couple whose communication seemed okay on the surface.
Right. Their overall frequency of communication was high, lots of texts, quick check-ins, but the AI detected worrying underlying patterns over a 6-month period. The time spent in meaningful, deep conversation had actually decreased by 60%, and attempts to constructively resolve conflicts had dropped by 40%. Meanwhile, the volume of simple, positive, surface-level texts, "love you," "have a good day," remained constant, masking the deeper erosion.
So it spots the subtle drift, the decline in quality hidden by quantity that often precedes major problems.
Exactly. The AI detects this specific pattern, high volume, declining quality, which historically correlates strongly with relationship breakdown. It doesn't just flag the problem, it suggests evidence-based preventative maintenance.
Like what? Couples therapy.
Maybe eventually, but it might start with simpler structural interventions. For example, pattern indicates declining communication depth. Recommend implementing 15-minute daily check-ins using structured communication prompts provided, and scheduling weekly dedicated date nights focused on non-logistical conversation. Historical data shows this specific intervention structure restores positive trajectory in 78% of relationships exhibiting your current pattern.
So it provides concrete, evidence-based actions for preventative maintenance. What about when conflict actually happens? Conflict resolution assistance in real time. That sounds intense, like AI couples therapy in your pocket during a fight.
It's essentially framed as pattern-based crisis de-escalation. During an argument, assuming both partners consent to using the feature the AI listens in, via phone mics or maybe a home device, it uses tone analysis, word choice patterns, detecting blame, contempt, defensiveness, and maybe even correlated physiological signals like rising stress hormones from a wearable sensor if available, to detect when the argument is escalating into destructive territory.
It hears things getting heated, recognizes the negative pattern.
Right. It detects rising voice pitch, increased frequency of interruptions, use of "you always" or "you never" language, classic destructive patterns.
And the intervention, what does it do? Beep loudly.
The specific recommendation mentioned was, potentially, vibrating both partners' phones simultaneously as a nonverbal signal to pause. Just take a breath. Then it might suggest 2 specific actions via a notification. 1, take a structured 20-minute separation break to cool down physiologically. 2, when you reconvene, use a pre-programmed structured communication framework like speaking, listen, or technique traumas designed to prevent arguments from spiraling into those repetitive destructive loops that damage the relationship. The claim is this kind of structured pause and redirect prevents 89% of arguments from becoming truly damaging.
It intervenes right at the moment the emotional regulation patterns are failing.
That's the idea.
But again, I have to ask, is there a danger here? If we optimize conflict resolution too perfectly with AI prompts, do we lose the chance to develop crucial human skills, like genuine, messy forgiveness or the emotional resilience that comes from navigating difficult moments authentically, even if imperfectly, without an AI holding our hands?
That's a fundamental philosophical tension embedded in the entire framework, and the source material implicitly acknowledges it. The guidance layer is primarily designed to intervene when systems are clearly failing, entering predictable, destructive loops. The AI steps in to prevent the known negative pattern from playing out, not necessarily to manage every minor disagreement.
So it's for stabilization, not replacing all negotiation.
The underlying assumption seems to be, once the system, the relationship in this case, is stabilized and out of immediate danger, humans can then re-engage with the complexity and messiness of life from a healthier, more resourceful starting point. But yes, the line between helpful scaffolding and over-reliance is a critical one to consider.
Okay, shifting from the couple to the community. On the macro scale, the source mentions community organization. How does pattern recognition help there?
This application leverages historical patterns of successful and unsuccessful community initiatives. Let's say a neighborhood group wants to start a campaign to improve a local park.
Yeah.
Instead of just starting from scratch, TAAI could analyze hundreds of similar successful park improvement campaigns from other towns or cities globally. What organizational structures worked, what tactics were effective, what were common pitfalls.
It learns from past successes.
Exactly. Based on that analysis, it might suggest an optimal strategy tailored to this specific neighborhood's context and resources. For example, analysis of comparable successful campaigns suggests 1. Identify and empower 3 to 5 core organizing leaders. You currently have 2 identified. 2. Recruit a minimum threshold of 50 active, engaged participants for visible support. You currently have 12. 3. Develop and present a specific costed improvement plan to the City Council by X date. Ensure you have concrete proposals ready.
So it essentially provides an evidence-based organizational blueprint derived from historical patterns to maximize the chances of success and optimize the group's efforts.
It might even provide guidance on timing, noting perhaps that similar campaigns which developed momentum over a 6-month period showed a 68% success rate, whereas campaigns rushed in under 2 months only succeeded 23% of the time. It applies temporal pattern analysis even to social campaigns.
This framework, digitVIEW-AI, it's clearly not just software running in the cloud. Realizing this vision would require a whole new ecosystem, specialized tools, new devices, and crucially, entirely new kinds of human jobs to manage and interpret all this AI-generated insight.
Absolutely. It necessitates a massive new layer of personalized computing infrastructure, hardware, software, and humanware.
Let's start with the hardware. The new devices needed just to gather the kind of comprehensive data digitVIEW-AI relies on.
The centerpiece, as envisioned in the source, seems to be the digitVIEW-AI biosensor patch.
What is that exactly?
Imagine a small, maybe 2-centimeter diameter, flexible patch. You wear it on your upper arm, perhaps? It provides continuous, non-invasive monitoring of key health indicators.
Like?
Heart rate and heart rate variability, HRV, core body temperature fluctuations, maybe proxy measures for blood glucose levels, hydration status, and even key stress hormones like cortisol, perhaps sampled from interstitial fluid.
Wow. Continuous multi-stream biodata.
Yes. And for it to be widely adopted, it needs to be relatively inexpensive, maybe disposable or easily rechargeable, have a decent battery life. The target mentioned was 14 days and potentially operate on a subscription model, maybe around $50 a month.
Developing that alone requires breakthroughs.
Huge breakthroughs. It needs new roles for biomedical engineers specializing in non-invasive sensing, microsensor manufacturers, data security experts, focused specifically on continuous physiological data streams, material scientists.
Okay, besides the personal patch, we also need environmental context, right? The smart home environmental monitor.
Yes. This device would sit in your home or office and track things like indoor air quality, CO2 particulates, VOCs, humidity levels, ambient light intensity and color temperature, noise pollution levels, maybe even common allergen presence like pollen or dust mites.
And it connects to the AI.
Its key function is intelligent integration with your personal data via digitVIEW-AI. The example given: when the AI detects from your biosensor patch that you've entered a deep sleep phase, the environmental monitor automatically responds. It might dim any remaining lights, maybe subtly adjust the room temperature down by 2 degrees F, which studies show can optimize sleep thermodynamics, and perhaps activate low-level white noise if external noise levels are detected rising. It actively optimizes your environment based on your real-time biological state.
Creating new roles for environmental health specialists, IoT architects focused on human-centric automation.
Exactly. Designing environments that proactively support well-being based on data.
The source also mentioned devices related to social balance?
Briefly, yes. Things like a relationship harmony device envisioned perhaps as a consenting shared device for monitoring family communication patterns, volume, tone, interruption frequency, to enable that real-time conflict resolution assistance we discussed. And maybe community pattern analyzers, localized sensors perhaps deployed with public consent to detect patterns associated with community safety risks, like inadequate street lighting correlating with crime patterns or noise violations linked to public disturbances.
Okay, let's move to software. The applications built on top of digitVIEW-AI would need to be highly specialized. We touched on the Purpose Finder app earlier using life pattern analysis. What else?
There's the Decision Assistant application. This is designed specifically to improve the quality of your significant decisions by analyzing your past similar decisions and their outcomes.
How would that work?
Say you're facing a major financial investment decision. The app might pop up an alert. Analysis of your past financial decisions shows that when you made similar choices impulsively, less than 24-hour consideration, 67% resulted in outcomes you later rated as regretful within 1 month. Recommend implementing your preset 48-hour delay protocol before finalizing this decision. It weaponizes your personal history to mitigate future risk.
Turns your past mistakes into guardrails. And the education applications sound incredibly refined, too.
The Education Optimizer platform. It wouldn't just identify your optimal learning times or styles. It could potentially use neurological pattern analysis, maybe correlating cognitive load indicators from a wearable with performance on learning tasks to adapt the difficulty level in real time.
Predicting confusion before it happens.
Predicting confusion or frustration patterns before they fully set in and derail learning. For a child learning geometry, if the system detects a characteristic pattern indicating they're struggling with an abstract concept, it could immediately switch to the teaching modality. Maybe shifting from abstract symbols on a screen to a physical, hands-on demonstration using augmented reality shapes they can manipulate. It customizes the learning pathway moment by moment.
The most intriguing and perhaps ethically complex software application mentioned was the political understanding platform, designed specifically to counter those polarization patterns we talked about earlier.
Yes. This platform's core function is to actively dismantle information bubbles. It first identifies your current media consumption patterns and dominant political vocabulary.
It figures out your echo chamber.
Essentially, yes. Then, it actively presents you with steelman arguments from opposing perspectives. Not straw men, but the strongest, most rational, most well-reasoned case for the viewpoint you don't hold. It would also aim to transparently show the likely policy trade-offs and historical outcomes associated with both sides of major issues.
That sounds incredibly difficult to build impartially.
Extremely difficult. It would necessitate near human roles, like highly skilled political mediators and dialogue facilitators, just to curate and manage the content and discussions on such a platform, ensuring fairness and constructive engagement.
Which brings us to the jobs. This whole ecosystem clearly requires entirely new job categories, people whose primary role is to interface between the AI and humans, because we can't just hand everything over.
Absolutely not. The source highlights several key new roles. The first is the pattern interpretation specialist.
What do they do?
They're the human liaison. They bridge the gap between the complex, probabilistic output of the AI and the understanding of the end user. They don't just read out the AI's findings, they synthesize the data, translate the implications into plain language, and help the user understand the why behind a pattern recommendation.
Give me an example.
Okay, a medical pattern interpreter. The AI flags a complex cardiovascular risk pattern based on subtle changes in your RHR, glucose variability, and inflammatory markers over 6 months. The interpreter sits down with you, or connects remotely, and explains. Okay, the AI detected this specific pattern. Here's the data it used. Based on large clinical studies, this pattern often precedes condition Y. Here are the potential intervention options the AI suggests, ranked by likely effectiveness for you. Let's discuss what makes sense given your lifestyle and values. Here's what I, as a health professional guiding you through this AI data, would recommend we focus on first.
So they need deep domain expertise, medicine, finance, whatever, plus AI literacy, plus great communication skills.
A very demanding skill set. We also desperately need ethical watchdogs for a system this powerful, AI ethics auditors.
What's their mandate?
Continuous oversight. Their responsibilities include rigorously testing the algorithms for hidden biases, verifying that privacy protections are actually working as intended, ensuring transparency in how data is used and how recommendations are generated, and specifically advocating for vulnerable populations whose unique patterns might be missed, misinterpreted, or marginalized by algorithms trained on majority data.
Requires ethics training, technical chops, and social awareness.
Definitely. Then there are the human-AI collaboration designers. Their focus is entirely on the user interface and interaction design.
Making sure the AI feels like a tool, not a boss.
Precisely. Ensuring the AI augments human judgment in decision-making, rather than replacing or undermining it. They design the feedback loops, the explanations, the controls, ensuring the user always feels they have cognitive agency. This needs a blend of UX design, cognitive psychology, and a deep understanding of AI capabilities and limitations. How do humans best work with probabilistic, data-driven advice?
And finally, the role you mentioned earlier to handle the data complexity. Personal data managers.
Right. These are the essential human guides, the concierges for the data ecosystem.
They manage the granular user controls we talked about being too complex for most people.
Exactly. They help individuals understand their data flows, set meaningful privacy permissions across different apps and sensors, review data usage periodically, and securely coordinate sharing specific data sets when needed, say, with a new doctor or a financial planner, under the user's explicit direction. They act as the human shield against information overload and the inherent complexity of managing one's own comprehensive digital footprint in a TABE AI world.
Okay, this framework. It paints a picture of potentially guiding humanity towards unprecedented efficiency, health, and fulfillment. But we absolutely have to hit the brakes and ask the hard, skeptical questions. How reliable, how trustworthy can a system this pervasive actually be? Especially when it's making suggestions that could alter someone's health, career, or relationships.
These are the critical questions. Reliability and trustworthiness are paramount, and the source material acknowledges this. Reliability seems to hinge on three core factors, and high confidence always requires high-quality inputs. First, simply data quality. For the AI to be highly reliable, it needs comprehensive, accurate, and, crucially, continuous data streams over extended periods, ideally years, not just weeks or months.
Garbage in, garbage out.
Absolutely. Low reliability inevitably stems from sporadic data, incomplete records, or inaccurate self-reports. The proposed solution here is transparency. TABE AI must always display clear indicators of the underlying data quality and the AI's resulting confidence level alongside every significant pattern or recommendation it makes. Confidence, 65% based on incomplete data for the last month.
Okay, data quality first. What's second?
Pattern complexity. This directly impacts the achievable confidence level. Simple, well-established patterns like severe sleep deprivation reliably impairs fine motor skills and cognitive function can have near-perfect reliability, close to 99%. But complex, multifactorial patterns, like attempting to predict the long-term success or failure of a specific relationship based on 5 years of communication data, involve far more variables and inherent uncertainty. These patterns necessarily require longer data collection periods, will always have lower confidence claims, maybe 70–80% at best, and must be presented and treated as probabilistic guidance, not as deterministic facts or decrees.
Manage expectations based on the complexity. Makes sense. Third factor.
Overcoming the fundamental challenge of individual variation. Patterns that hold true for large populations on average, people benefit from frequently do not hold true for every unique, idiosyncratic individual. We all have quirks.
The average person doesn't really exist.
Exactly. So the solution is absolutely fundamental to the whole TABE AI concept. The system must establish that robust, minimum 90-day individual baseline we talked about. And it must never assume a general population pattern applies to you without personalized, continuous validation and testing against your specific historical data and outcomes. Personalization isn't a feature. It's a core requirement for reliability at the individual level.
Okay, so reliability depends on data quality, pattern complexity, and individual baselining. But reliability isn't enough. You need trust, especially when the AI is making emotionally charged suggestions about your life or health. We absolutely have to avoid the black box problem, right? Where the AI just tells you, do this, and you have no idea why.
Completely. That requires absolute transparency in the intervention and guidance layer. Users must be able to understand, at least conceptually, how the AI reaches its conclusions. Opaque, unexplained algorithmic commands destroy trust almost instantly.
So how do you achieve transparency with such complex systems?
It requires implementing explainable AI, XAI techniques, and providing clear, plain language summaries. Let's compare the black box output versus the transparent, trustworthy output for that career change example.
Okay, what does the bad black box version say?
It just says something like, algorithm confidence, 85%. Recommended action. Initiate immediate career change. That feels like a command from an oracle. It breeds dependence, maybe resentment, and offers no basis for discussion or disagreement.
And the transparent, trustworthy version?
It provides the evidence and the reasoning. Analysis of your longitudinal data, past 2 years, identified a convergence of 5 key patterns. 1. Your self-reported job satisfaction has decreased by 40% over the last 12 months. 2. Physiological stress markers show a consistent 35% spike every Monday morning compared to your weekly average. 3. Activities outside work, specifically woodworking, teaching, volunteer hours, consistently generate 90% higher reported fulfillment scores for you. 4. Your stated core values, creativity, autonomy, show low alignment, 5/10, with your current role's perceived constraints based on your journal entries. 5. Historical data indicates 78% of individuals exhibiting a similar multi-factor pattern reported significant increases in overall well-being within 1 year following a values-aligned career transition.
Ah, okay. That evidence-based explanation completely changes the dynamic. It shifts it from an order to a well-supported recommendation. It empowers me, the user, to actually engage with it, maybe even challenge one of the data points or interpretation.
Exactly. That collaborative stance, facilitated by transparency, is essential for building trust. Another huge requirement for trust is proactive bias mitigation.
Right, because historical data is often full of societal biases, racial, gender, socioeconomic. Training an AI on that biased data sounds like a recipe for amplifying and automating those biases into the future at scale.
The risk is profound and potentially catastrophic if ignored. The source material explicitly uses the example of historical healthcare data, where studies showed doctors sometimes dismissed women's pain symptoms more readily than men's.
Yeah, that's a known issue.
An AI trained naively on that raw historical data might inadvertently learn and then perpetuate that bias, perhaps by systematically recommending less aggressive pain management strategies for female users presenting with similar symptoms, simply because the historical data reflected that bias pattern.
So how do you prevent that?
It requires multiple layers of explicit correction and ongoing vigilance. First, developers must identify and actively correct for known historical biases in the source data before training. Second, using highly diverse development and testing teams is critical to catch potential biases early. Third, implementing algorithmic fairness constraints and conducting regular, rigorous bias audits across all demographic groups after deployment is essential to ensure the system isn't inadvertently discriminating. It's an ongoing process, not a one-time fix.
Okay, and the final piece for trustworthiness. Ensuring the system maintains alignment with human values, making sure its optimization goals don't become destructive.
Yeah, this is about avoiding the trap of Goodhart's law.
Which is?
When a measure becomes a target, it ceases to be a good measure. If Tab AI is told to optimize purely for a single narrow metric, let's say, maximize quarterly productivity output for the user, it will find ways to do that.
Even if it makes the person miserable.
Exactly. It might recommend working 16-hour days, sacrificing sleep, neglecting relationships, skipping exercise, all because those actions temporarily boost that one narrow productivity metric it's targeting. The system would succeed by its own measure, but the user's actual life quality would plummet.
A classic case of optimizing the metric, destroying the goal.
Precisely. So the philosophical correction is crucial here. The definition of success or optimal outcome for Tab AI must be explicitly defined as holistic well-being. This needs to be a multidimensional assessment that includes factors like relationship health, mental stability, physical resilience, sense of purpose, community connection. Not just maximizing one narrow measure like economic output or task completion. It needs to understand the whole picture of human flourishing.
So wrapping this up, this framework, Tab AI, it really proposes a kind of data-driven map for navigating existence. It scales all the way from, stopping you from making an impulsive purchase late at night.
Right up to potentially predicting the patterns that precede societal destabilization.
It's vast.
The synthesis, the big vision here, is about using this meta-pattern recognition capability, not just to forecast what might happen, but to actively, meticulously optimize the present moment.
How so?
By operating on the premise that every system, whether it's your personal biology, a market, or a social structure, is ultimately governed by underlying structural rules. Rules that a sufficiently powerful AI, fed with enough data, can uncover. And once uncovered, those rules, those patterns, can potentially be leveraged for human benefit, bringing clarity to the chaos, using pattern certainty to hopefully achieve systemic stability, from the individual outwards.
We started this whole deep dive talking about the premise that Tab AI's ultimate goal is to help us discover and validate our purpose. It does this by analyzing our actual behaviors, our relationships, our reported well-being. We use that example where the system identified, for a hypothetical user, that their highest, most sustained satisfaction consistently occurred when they were teaching others, creating things with their hands, and having deep philosophical conversations.
Right. And that example, that capability, raises a final, maybe provocative question for you listening to this. The question that builds on everything we've explored in the source material today. If you had a system like Tab AI, and it could perfectly track your behavioral patterns, your emotional responses, your satisfaction levels, and it could definitively predict how you uniquely find fulfillment. If it told you with, say, 90% certainty based on years of your own data that your highest, most sustainable satisfaction reliably emerges when you're engaged in activity X, relationship Y, and contribution Z, How might knowing those underlying patterns with that level of certainty actually change the way you prioritize your time tomorrow? Would you immediately restructure your life to maximize those high fulfillment patterns, trusting the data? Or would you still feel the need to seek fulfillment through the more spontaneous, maybe less efficient, unpredictable exploration that defines much of the human search for purpose? Would certainty remove the joy of the pursuit?
That really cuts to the heart of it, doesn't it? Free will versus algorithmic optimization, predictability versus the magic of discovery. Definitely something worth mulling over. And that's all the time we have for this deep dive into the incredibly comprehensive and thought-provoking TBAI framework. We hope this exploration of the source material has given you a solid shortcut to being well-informed on this profound technological proposal.
Thank you for joining us.
Yeah.
We'll see you soon.
This is DigitView.